What's happening, peoples? I want to welcome everybody to the Mr. Pop Shit Show. You feel me? We're going to try to figure out these little deals here. We're going to try to integrate this right here. But I'm finna talk to AI and see what we can come up with, man. I need about a good 15 minutes commentary by myself, you know? So, damn, hold them up. Okay. Let's see. What do I want to talk about, y'all? Fuck. I don't fucking know, man. I don't fucking know. I guess let's get back into the FBA shit, man. I guess we get back into the FBA shit because I'm really intrigued about my foundational blackness. It's incredible. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at my flag. I'm looking at my flag right there, my FBA flag. And on the flag, it's a fist. It's a black fist. And they got 1526. What do we know about the year 1526, y'all? When did Christopher Columbus so-called discover America? That's in 1490 something, right? So 1526, why is that valuable to a foundation of Black Americans? Let's ask AI that. Okay, the year 1526 is valuable to foundation of Black Americans. Why?
The year 1526 is significant in the context of the foundation of Black Americans because it marks one of the earliest instances of African enslavement in what is now the United States. Here's a closer look at the events of that year and their implications. The transatlantic slave trade and its early beginnings. 1. The Spanish expedition. In 1526, a Spanish expedition led by Lucas Vasquez de Ayllón sought to establish a settlement in present-day Georgia. This expedition is noteworthy because it involved the introduction of enslaved Africans to North America. 2. Enslaved Africans. Ayllón brought with him a number of enslaved Africans, making them some of the first people of African descent to arrive in what would become the United States. This event is significant as it represents an early step in the larger narrative of African enslavement and the transatlantic slave trade, which would dramatically shape the future of the Americas. 3. Impact on indigenous peoples. The arrival of Europeans and enslaved Africans also had a devastating impact on Native American populations, altering their societies, cultures, and demographics through disease, conflict, and displacement. Legacy. 1. Foundation of Black America. The events of 1526 can be viewed as a precursor to the extensive system of chattel slavery that would develop in the United States. This marked the beginning of a long history of African presence in North America, with significant cultural, social, and economic repercussions. 2. Cultural influence. Over the centuries, African Americans contributed to the cultural fabric of the nation, influencing music, art, cuisine, and more. The legacies of slavery, resistance, and the struggle for rights and equality all have roots in the early experiences of Africans in America. 3. Historical awareness. Recognizing events like those of 1526 helps contextualize the ongoing issues of race, inequality, and social justice in America today. It serves as a reminder of the deep historical contexts that continue to shape the experiences of Black Americans. Conclusion. In summary, 1526 is a critical year in understanding the early foundations of Black America, marking a significant point in the history of African enslavement and the complex interactions between European colonizers, enslaved Africans, and indigenous peoples in North America. This history is essential for understanding the broader narrative of the United States and the ongoing impacts of slavery and racism.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Were there slaves in Mexico? And were any of the Mexicans slaves at this time? Or was it just Indians and Africans?
Enslaved people in Mexico, and this included both indigenous peoples and Africans. Here's a brief overview of the situation regarding slavery in Mexico during and after the colonial period. Indigenous slavery. 1. Encomienda system. Following the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire in 1521, the Spanish implemented the encomienda system. This system allowed Spanish settlers to claim the labor of indigenous people in specific areas. While technically not slavery, it imposed harsh labor conditions that resulted in significant exploitation. 2. Forced labor. Many indigenous people faced forced labor in mines, plantations, and other labor-intensive enterprises. Many died due to overwork and harsh conditions. African slavery. 1. Introduction of Africans. Africans were brought to Mexico beginning in the early 16th century. The first Africans arrived with Spanish colonizers shortly after the conquest. By the late 1500s and into the 17th century, the number of enslaved Africans in New Spain, the Spanish colonial territory that included present-day Mexico, began to grow. 2. Role of Africans. Enslaved Africans worked in various roles, including agriculture, mining, and domestic service. They were often subjected to brutal treatment, much like enslaved people in other parts of the Americas. 3. Mixed communities. Over time, various racial and ethnic groups mixed in colonial Mexico, which led to the creation of a complex social hierarchy. The population included indigenous peoples, African descendants, and Europeans, Spanish settlers, which helped form a diverse cultural landscape. Legacy. 1. Abolition of slavery. Slavery in Mexico was officially abolished in 1829, although forms of labor exploitation persisted well beyond the legal end of slavery. The history of slavery has left a lasting impact on Mexican society, culture, and demographics. 2. Cultural contributions. Enslaved Africans and their descendants contributed significantly to Mexican culture, particularly in areas such as music, dance, and cuisine. Conclusion. In summary, both indigenous people and Africans were subjected to various forms of bondage and forced labor in Mexico during and after the colonial era. Understanding this history is essential for appreciating the complex social fabric of contemporary Mexican society and its historical roots.
Damn, I forgot. See, this is gonna help me going with AI because I forgot what I was gonna say. Forgot what I was gonna fucking say. I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn. Cause you gotta be quiet and let it get its shit off. And you don't wanna interrupt it. Damn. What was I for that?
No worries. It sounds like you're in the midst of brainstorming or formulating ideas. If you need some time to gather your thoughts or if you have more to say, just take your time. When you're ready, feel free to share whatever you want, and I'll be here to listen and respond.
So is it safe to say that the whites was the last to get to the
Sure.
Americans?
What would you like to say? Feel free to complete your thought or ask your question, and I'll do my best to assist you.
Is it safe to say that the whites were the last to get to the Americans?
It's accurate to say that European colonization, particularly by the Spanish, French, and later the English, occurred later than the initial arrival of indigenous peoples in the Americas. Here's a brief overview to provide context. 1. Indigenous peoples. The first inhabitants of the Americas are believed to have arrived over 15,000 years ago via the Bering Land Bridge from Asia. These indigenous communities established rich, diverse cultures long before Europeans arrived. 2. European arrival. Norse explorers, such as Leif Erikson, are thought to have reached parts of North America, specifically present-day Newfoundland, around 1000 CE, but this settlement did not lead to widespread colonization. 3. Spanish and other European explorers. The age of significant European exploration began in earnest with Christopher Columbus's voyage in 1492, leading to Spanish colonization in the Caribbean, Mexico, and South America. The French and the Dutch established their presence in North America in the 16th and 17th centuries, while the English began to settle along the Atlantic coast around the early 1600s. 4. Colonization patterns. Various European powers established colonies throughout the Americas over the centuries. By the time English settlers arrived in North America, the Spanish had already been well established in Central and South America for more than a century. Conclusion. So, while the indigenous peoples were the original inhabitants, Europeans, including the Spanish, French, and later the English, arrived at different times, with the English being among the later groups to establish settlements in North America. If you have further questions or need more detail, feel free to ask.
Well, you didn't really answer my question, but I get what you said. So the English was the last. Those are the whites. Okay. So what else I want to know?
I apologize. apologize if my previous response wasn't clear. To answer your question directly, yes. Compared to other European groups like the Spanish and French, the English were among the last major European powers to establish significant colonies in North America. If you're asking about the broader context of European colonization and the arrival of different groups, you could say that among the major European nations involved in colonization, the English were relatively late to the Americas compared to the Spanish and French. If you have more specific aspects you want to discuss or additional questions, please let me know.
Is it only the Spanish and French? So only the Spanish and French was here first. You still don't want to know that maybe some Africans was. Oh.
Context of early European colonization of the Americas. A few key nations were involved beyond just the Spanish and French. Here's a brief overview. 1. Spanish. The Spanish were among the first Europeans to establish large-scale colonies in the Americas following Columbus's voyages. Beginning in the late 15th century, they colonized vast areas in South and Central America, as well as parts of North America like Florida and the Southwest. 2. French. The French established colonies primarily in Canada, New France, and the Mississippi River Valley. They were active in the fur trade and had significant interactions with indigenous peoples. 3. English. The English began settling in North America in the early 1600s, with colonies such as Jamestown established in 1607. They eventually expanded along.
All right, let me ask you this question. Fuck, I just forgot it. Oh my, I hate
Please
that.
go ahead and ask your question. I'm here to help.
I make this shit look easy. 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 I see what I like, then I go out and get it. I make changes, that's why I'm different. I see it before it happens, that's vision. Telling myself I know I like this.